Have you ever thought about what it will be like when heaven opens its doors to welcome you? What do you imagine as that moment approaches? Peace, joy, a sense of completion? Do you feel ready for that door to open? Or do you wonder what it takes to truly be prepared for such an encounter? These are questions that have been asked by people throughout history, and they still hold deep significance in our lives today. The concept of heaven, a perfect, eternal place where pain, suffering, and sorrow are no more, is something that transcends cultural and religious boundaries. In Christianity, heaven is often seen as a place of eternal union with God, a place of peace and everlasting life. In Islam, it is described as Jannah, a paradise filled with rewards and blessings for the righteous. For Buddhists, heaven might not be a final destination but a state of nirvana, an ultimate peace where all suffering ceases. In Hinduism, the idea of Swarga involves a place where virtuous souls rest before being reborn, while other traditions speak of heaven in various ways, a place of reunion, rest, or fulfillment. But beyond these cultural and religious views, heaven represents something more universal, a longing for peace, fulfillment, and connection with the divine. It represents an ideal that many believe awaits us, but it is not just a distant, future event. It's deeply intertwined with how we live our lives today. The idea that preparing to open the door to heaven is not just about the future, but also about how we live now can have a profound impact on how we view our daily choices and actions. Heaven isn't just something to look forward to after life. It's something that we can begin to experience here on earth through the ways we live, love, and treat others. The life we lead today plays a significant role in how we prepare ourselves for that ultimate moment of peace and welcome. As we explore this concept together, think about your own life and your own relationship with this idea of heaven. What does it mean for you? And how might your actions today shape your journey toward that moment when heaven's doors open? Heaven is often envisioned as the ultimate destination, a perfect place where all suffering is eliminated and eternal happiness reigns. It represents a realm of peace, serenity, and divine presence, a place where those who have lived righteous lives are welcomed into an existence free from pain, fear, and hardship. In this space, joy and love are abundant, and it's described as the place where individuals experience the fullest connection to the divine, whether that's God, a higher power, or the universe, depending on one's beliefs. At its core, heaven is a symbol of hope. It is the final destination that many long for, especially during moments of difficulty and suffering. In times of hardship, the concept of heaven can serve as a source of comfort, reminding people that despite life's challenges, there is a greater purpose and a beautiful, eternal future awaiting those who persevere and live virtuously. Heaven is often described as being free of suffering, no pain, no grief, and no sorrow. It's not just a place of tranquility, but also a realm where love, understanding, and peace prevail. The idea that heaven is a perfect world where all is good and just, untouched by the troubles of earth, is central to many religious teachings. This purity and joy are what make heaven so desirable, representing an existence beyond the frailty and turmoil that define our earthly lives. While the vision of heaven is similar across many cultures, a place of peace, joy, and eternal bliss, each religion brings its own unique interpretation of what heaven is and how one might reach it. In Christianity, heaven is depicted as the eternal kingdom of God, where those who follow Christ's teachings and live righteous lives are promised eternal peace and communion with God. The Bible describes heaven as a place of unimaginable beauty and serenity. In the book of Revelation, heaven is portrayed as a city made of gold, with streets of pure gold, gates of pearl, and foundations adorned with precious stones. The faithful are promised to live with God forever, experiencing perfect unity, peace, and joy in His presence. Heaven is not just a reward but a restoration of humanity's original purpose, to live in harmony with God and creation. It is a place of eternal worship, freedom from sin, and unity with loved ones. In Islam, heaven is called Jannah, which is described as a paradise where all desires are fulfilled. Jannah is depicted as a lush, beautiful garden with rivers of milk, honey, and wine, and the faithful are promised eternal enjoyment of these bounties. The Quran presents heaven as a place where there is no pain, no sadness, and no tiredness. Those who live righteous lives, uphold their faith, and act in service to others are promised entrance into Jannah, where they will be in the presence of Allah, God. The reward of heaven in Islam is both physical and spiritual, as it includes both material pleasures and a deep, personal connection to God. It is a place of ultimate peace, where individuals are free from the temptations and struggles of the earthly life. In Buddhism, heaven is not a permanent afterlife, but a temporary realm, where one's good karma results in rebirth in a higher state of existence. There are various heavenly realms within the Buddhist cosmology, such as the Pure Land, where beings live in bliss, free from suffering, and are afforded the opportunity to move closer to nirvana, the ultimate liberation from the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. Nirvana itself is the ultimate goal, an eternal state of peace and liberation. However, the heavenly realms, like Tusita heaven or Deva realms, offer temporary relief from suffering while the soul works toward enlightenment. Here, one experiences a period of joy and serenity, where the soul can gain further spiritual progress before ultimately achieving liberation. In Hinduism, the concept of heaven is often linked to Svarga, a temporary abode for the soul before it is reincarnated. Svarga is a blissful realm, filled with beauty and divine pleasure, and it's the result of one's good karma. However, it is not permanent. Souls enjoy the rewards of their good actions here before being reborn. Moksha, or liberation, is the ultimate goal in Hinduism, a state of union with the divine that transcends all earthly existence, including the heavenly realms. While heaven is seen as a desirable state, the highest achievement is to break free from the cycle of birth and death entirely and unite with the Supreme Being, Brahman. In this context, heaven represents a step on the journey toward ultimate spiritual liberation. Other belief systems also offer unique interpretations of heaven. In ancient Egyptian religion, heaven was thought of as a paradise called the Field of Reeds, where individuals who had lived virtuous lives would spend eternity in peace. Similarly, in many indigenous spiritual traditions, heaven or an afterlife is often depicted as a place of peace and eternal rest, where one is reunited with ancestors and loved ones. In some Native American traditions, the afterlife is described as a journey to a spiritual world, a place of beauty, rest, and ultimate peace. While the details of heaven vary significantly across religious traditions, there is a universal theme of peace, joy, and a deep connection with the divine. In every culture and faith, heaven is viewed as the culmination of a good life, where suffering ceases and individuals can experience ultimate fulfillment and harmony. At the heart of every religious and spiritual tradition is the hope that one day, heaven will truly open its doors to those who are worthy. This hope is deeply embedded in the human experience, driving many to live lives of righteousness, service, and devotion. The idea that heaven's door will open to welcome us is not just a future promise, but a source of motivation, encouragement, and inspiration throughout our earthly journey. For many, the door to heaven symbolizes the entrance to a life without suffering, where all wrongs are made right and justice is restored. It represents ultimate fulfillment, the culmination of all our struggles, prayers, and efforts. But it's also a reminder that the actions we take here on earth have an eternal consequence. Heaven's doors are not just a divine gift. They are a result of how we choose to live, how we align ourselves with love, compassion, and moral integrity. Faith in the eventual opening of heaven's door gives us strength during difficult times. It reminds us that our trials on earth are temporary, and that there is a greater purpose beyond the struggles of life. The belief that heaven's doors will one day open also encourages us to live with hope and expectation, knowing that every act of kindness, every moment of love, and every step taken in faith brings us closer to that eternal peace. As we reflect on the concept of heaven and the eventual opening of its doors, we are reminded that the path to heaven is not solely about waiting for the afterlife, but about preparing ourselves each day through our choices, actions, and the way we interact with others to truly deserve that final, welcoming embrace. Heaven's door is not just a destination, but a journey, and it opens to those who live their lives in pursuit of love, peace, and connection with the divine. The idea of heaven, a place of ultimate peace and joy, is not just a distant dream or an abstract concept. It is deeply tied to how we live our lives today. Many religious traditions emphasize that our actions and choices here on earth have direct consequences on whether or not we will be able to enter heaven. Heaven is often portrayed not only as a destination but also as the culmination of a well-lived life. Our current life shapes our access to heaven by how we choose to live, how we treat others, and the values we uphold. The actions we take, the decisions we make, and the way we interact with the world can all be considered preparations for heaven. It's not just about waiting for a distant afterlife, but about living in a way that aligns with the principles that heaven represents: peace, kindness, justice, and love. The notion that heaven is accessible to those who live righteous lives encourages people to reflect on their day-to-day behaviors. Each decision, each interaction, and each moment of kindness brings us one step closer to that divine reward. We are constantly presented with choices in our lives, and many of those choices determine the type of person we become and, ultimately, our spiritual destiny. Living a life that prepares us for heaven is an ongoing process, not a one-time event. It requires conscious effort and a willingness to choose the higher path, even when it's difficult. From choosing to be honest, kind, and compassionate, to seeking to better understand our place in the world and our relationship to the divine, our actions become the means by which we prepare ourselves to enter heaven's gates. One of the fundamental aspects of preparing for heaven is the way we live according to moral principles, the depth of our belief, and the consistency of our actions. These three elements, morality, belief, and action, are often viewed as the building blocks that help us earn access to heaven. Morality is about living a righteous life. It involves adhering to ethical principles that reflect justice, kindness, integrity, and honesty. In most religions, heaven is reserved for those who live in alignment with divine will and follow moral guidelines that promote harmony, peace, and love. Acts of kindness, honesty, compassion, and charity are all examples of moral actions that strengthen our connection to heaven. A life of integrity, where one seeks to do right by others and make ethical choices, is seen as preparing oneself for the reward of eternal peace in heaven. For example, in Christianity, the Ten Commandments and Jesus' teachings on loving God and loving one's neighbor serve as moral guidelines to live by. In Islam, the concept of Tawheed, the oneness of God, and living a life of righteousness through acts of charity and prayer form the foundation of moral conduct. These principles align our lives with divine expectations and ensure that we are walking in the right direction toward heaven. Belief plays a crucial role in shaping our path to heaven. It's through faith in God or the divine that we are able to build the spiritual foundation necessary to enter heaven. Belief in a higher power, trust in divine providence, and the understanding that our lives have a greater purpose beyond the material world are central to many faiths. Faith allows us to endure challenges, overcome doubts, and continue striving toward goodness, even when it seems difficult. However, belief is not enough on its own. It must be accompanied by actions. Many religions emphasize that faith must manifest in tangible ways. In Christianity, the faith without works is dead teaching underscores the need for belief to be followed by righteous deeds. Similarly, in Islam, faith is often coupled with actions such as prayer, fasting, charity, and pilgrimage, all of which help one stay connected to Allah and work toward entry into Jannah, paradise. By committing to both believing and acting according to our faith, we demonstrate our readiness for the reward that awaits us. A moral, faithful, and active life is what ultimately prepares us for heaven. While morality and belief provide the foundation for entering heaven, certain core values are particularly significant in the journey toward divine fulfillment. Among these values, humility and love stand out as two of the most important. Humility is one of the central virtues in almost every major religion and spiritual tradition. It involves recognizing our limitations, being honest about our imperfections, and surrendering to a higher power. Humility is the opposite of arrogance and pride. It is a willingness to put others before oneself and acknowledge that we are not in control of everything. In essence, humility connects us to a deeper understanding of our dependence on God or a higher being, and it helps us align our lives with a greater purpose. In Christianity, Jesus Christ's life is the ultimate model of humility. He washed the feet of his disciples, lived a life of service, and ultimately sacrificed himself for the good of humanity. His example teaches that true greatness comes through service and humility. Similarly, in Islam, the Prophet Muhammad emphasized the importance of humility, advising that those who humble themselves before God will be exalted. Humility is also reflected in the concept of submission to the divine will in both Islam and Judaism, reinforcing the idea that humility is central to preparing ourselves spiritually for heaven. Humility also involves understanding that we are all equal in the eyes of God, regardless of our status, wealth, or accomplishments. It's through humility that we open ourselves up to God's grace, knowing that we are not entitled to heaven but instead are reliant on His mercy and forgiveness. Love is arguably the most powerful force that connects us to heaven. Love for God and love for others are the core commands in many spiritual traditions. In Christianity, Jesus teaches that the greatest commandments are to love God with all your heart and to love your neighbor as yourself. Similarly, in Islam, love for Allah and compassion for others are fundamental to the path toward paradise. Love fosters kindness, empathy, and understanding, qualities that are essential for living in alignment with divine principles. True love, whether for God or for fellow human beings, transcends selfishness and ego. It moves us to act in ways that benefit others, to forgive when we are wronged, and to seek justice for those who suffer. Loving others unconditionally, helping those in need, and forgiving those who have wronged us are all actions that prepare us for heaven. The practice of love cultivates peace in our hearts and in the world around us, and it serves as the clearest indication that we are living a life worthy of heaven. In Buddhism, love and compassion, known as karuna, are central to the path toward enlightenment. Cultivating loving kindness toward all living beings is seen as essential for spiritual growth. Similarly, in Hinduism, the concept of bhakti, devotion, and seva, selfless service, emphasizes that love and selfless acts are key to attaining spiritual fulfillment and union with the divine. Heaven is, in many ways, the ultimate expression of love. It is the place where we are completely enveloped in the love of God, free from the hatred, anger, and divisions that define human existence. Therefore, practicing love on earth is perhaps the most powerful way to prepare for heaven, aligning our hearts with the divine and ensuring that we are living in harmony with heaven's values. Our ability to enter heaven is profoundly impacted by how we live our lives here on earth. Living a life of morality, faith, and positive action prepares us for heaven by aligning our hearts with divine will. Humility and love are essential values that guide us on this journey, as they open our hearts to God and to others, allowing us to live with compassion, kindness, and service. As we continue our journey through life, let us reflect on how our actions today can bring us closer to the gates of heaven. Let us live each day with the understanding that the life we choose to live now, filled with love, humility, and a commitment to righteousness, is the key to the ultimate reward of eternal peace and joy. The image of heaven's doors opening is a powerful symbol in many religious traditions, representing the moment when the faithful are welcomed into eternal peace and unity with the divine. However, the question remains, how will these doors open? Is it because of our actions here on earth, or is it through divine grace, mercy, and favor? Different religions and spiritual beliefs offer unique perspectives on this matter, Many traditions believe that access to heaven is not simply about the actions we perform, but how we live with faith, devotion, and purpose. While our actions certainly play a significant role, divine grace is often considered the key that opens the doors of heaven. In some faiths, there is a strong emphasis on the role of our actions. Living a righteous life, helping others, practicing selflessness, and staying true to moral and spiritual principles are seen as ways to prepare for heaven's doors to open. In Christianity, the idea of faith without works being dead, James 2:26, underlines the importance of living according to God's commandments. Actions like kindness, forgiveness, love, and devotion are understood as vital aspects of the preparation for heaven. Similarly, in Islam, actions such as performing the 5 pillars of Islam, giving to charity, and fulfilling duties to God are seen as the way to earn entry into Jannah, paradise. On the other hand, many believe that heaven's door will open because of God's grace and mercy, not because we have earned it through actions alone. This belief is central to Christianity, where it is understood that salvation is a gift from God, made possible through faith in Jesus Christ. It's not about being perfect, but about accepting God's grace. In the Christian faith, the New Testament speaks of grace being given freely to those who believe. Ephesians 2:8-9. Divine grace in Islam also plays an essential role. The Quran teaches that Allah's mercy is greater than His wrath, and that while righteous actions are important, entry into Jannah is ultimately determined by Allah's will. Similarly, in Hinduism, the path to heaven is seen as one of both devotion, bhakti, and surrender to divine grace. Though righteous living is essential, it's understood that divine mercy is what ultimately frees the soul from the cycle of birth and death. In essence, heaven's doors are seen as a convergence of human effort and divine grace, a divine invitation to those who live with faith, purpose, and love, but with the understanding that it is God's grace that opens the door, not our own merits alone. Sacred texts across the world's major religions use vivid and symbolic language to describe the opening of heaven's gates, each offering unique imagery that connects believers to the divine promise of eternal peace. In Christianity, the image of heaven's doors is perhaps most famously represented in the Bible as the pearly gates. In Revelation 21:21, it is written, "The 12 gates were 12 pearls, each gate made of a single pearl. The great street of the city was of gold, as pure as transparent glass." This imagery conveys the purity, beauty, and eternal nature of heaven. The gates, made of pure pearls, symbolize the rarity and sanctity of the divine realm, and how it is not a place for the impure, but a destination for those who have lived lives aligned with God's will. The golden streets represent the divine presence and the perfect unity with God. Another important image from Revelation is of the Lamb's Book of Life, Revelation 21:27. Those whose names are written in this book are promised entry into heaven. This underscores the idea that entry is based not just on deeds, but also on divine election and grace. In Islam, heaven is known as Jannah, and it is described as a place of immense beauty, filled with gardens, rivers of milk, honey, and wine, and treasures beyond imagination. The Quran speaks of 8 gates of Jannah, each one designated for those who excel in different aspects of righteousness. The righteous will be invited to enter through these gates, each of which offers a specific reward. In Surah Az-Zumar 39-73, it is written, "And those who feared their Lord will be led to Jannah in groups, until, when they reach it, and its gates have been opened, and its keepers will say, 'Peace be upon you, you have become pure. So enter it to dwell eternally.'" Over. This image emphasizes the idea that heaven's gates open for the pure and righteous, inviting them into eternal peace. The gates, like those in Christianity, represent a divine invitation, and the key to entering lies in one's devotion and submission to God's will. In both Buddhism and Hinduism, the notion of heaven is not as literal as in Christianity and Islam, but still represents the end of suffering and the attainment of spiritual fulfillment. In Buddhism, nirvana is seen as the ultimate state of liberation, where the cycle of suffering and rebirth ceases. The image of entering nirvana can be thought of as entering a state of eternal peace and cessation of all suffering. Although not an opening door, in the traditional sense, nirvana represents the end of spiritual journeying, the ultimate release from the gates of samsara, the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. Similarly, in Hinduism, the concept of moksha, liberation from the cycle of reincarnation, is described in terms of merging with Brahman, the supreme universal spirit. The path to moksha is paved with selfless actions, devotion to God, and a life of spiritual discipline. The opening of moksha's door signifies the end of the soul's journey through rebirth, symbolizing eternal union with the divine. These religious and spiritual teachings offer a variety of ways that heaven's gates are depicted, from physical entrances like pearly gates or radiant doors, to more abstract concepts like spiritual liberation and peace. Regardless of the imagery, the common thread is that entry to heaven, or its equivalent, is a privilege granted to those who are worthy, whether through actions, devotion, or divine grace. While the imagery of heaven's doors is universal in its symbolism, it is important to understand that everyone is welcomed in their own way. Heaven's door does not open to a one-size-fits-all approach. The path to entry is unique for each individual, depending on their beliefs, actions, and spiritual journey. The concept of heaven's gates opening is not just a physical reality but also a spiritual awakening. It is about aligning your life with a greater purpose and preparing your heart and soul for that divine invitation. Whether through acts of kindness, devotion, or personal sacrifice, heaven's doors open to those who have lived in harmony with divine values. It's about being true to your purpose, whatever that may be, and ensuring that your heart is open to love, compassion, and peace. In Christianity, those who follow Christ's teachings, loving others, practicing humility, and forgiving one another, are promised entry into heaven. In Islam, submission to the will of Allah and performing righteous deeds lead to entry into Jannah. Similarly, in Hinduism and Buddhism, those who follow the spiritual paths of selflessness, devotion, and enlightenment will experience union with the divine. Heaven's door, in many ways, represents a personalized invitation that takes into account the unique struggles, victories, and journey of each soul. The idea that everyone is welcomed in their own way is reflected in many traditions that emphasize God's or the universe's knowledge of the individual soul. No one is left behind, and each person's journey is acknowledged. Those who have suffered greatly in life, yet maintained their faith, are equally invited as those who have lived lives of service and peace. In this sense, heaven's doors are not only a physical entry but a spiritual homecoming, where each soul is embraced for the entirety of their journey and their efforts toward goodness, however imperfect. The opening of heaven's doors is a beautiful and powerful metaphor across many religious traditions. It represents not only a future promise of peace, but also an ongoing spiritual journey. Whether through our actions, our belief, or God's grace, the key to entering heaven lies in how we live today. Preparing ourselves to be worthy of the divine invitation, heaven's doors open to those who live in alignment with a greater purpose, embracing love, compassion, and humility, and ultimately seeking unity with the divine. While the path may differ for each individual, the goal remains the same: to enter a realm of eternal peace and joy, welcomed by the divine. Life is full of challenges. Each of us will face trials, suffering, and hardships at various points in our lives. Whether it's the loss of a loved one, a personal health struggle, a financial crisis, relationship troubles, or even existential questions about purpose and direction, life is not always easy. No one is exempt from suffering. However, it is how we approach these challenges that can define our path to heaven. Challenges and struggles are universal experiences, something that every person must face. They are an inherent part of the human condition, but while these difficulties can sometimes feel overwhelming or unfair, they are also opportunities to test and strengthen our faith and character. In many spiritual traditions, suffering is not seen as a meaningless event or punishment, but rather as a spiritual test that shapes us and prepares us for the future. The Bible, for example, encourages believers to view hardships as a means to grow spiritually. In James 1:2-4, it says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." I guess this passage reflects a powerful perspective. Suffering, when faced with the right mindset, leads to spiritual growth and maturity. Similarly, in Islam, trials are seen as a test from Allah that strengthens one's faith. The Quran teaches that tests and hardships are a way for the faithful to earn rewards, purify their souls, and grow closer to Allah. In Surah Al-Baqarah 2-155-157, it states, "And we will surely test you with something of fear and hunger, and a loss of wealth and lives and fruits. But give good tidings to the patient, who, when disaster strikes them, say, 'Indeed we belong to Allah, and indeed to Him is our return.'" This highlights the concept that life's trials are a form of purification. They prepare us for greater spiritual rewards, including the ultimate reward of entering heaven. Life's struggles, therefore, are not pointless or without meaning. Instead, they are part of a greater divine plan, offering us the chance to grow, learn, and transform. They are essential steps on the journey to heaven's door, and they present an opportunity to reaffirm our faith and trust in something greater than ourselves. When faced with suffering, it's easy to feel lost, overwhelmed, or abandoned. But in these moments of hardship, there are ways to find solace, strengthen our faith, and rediscover our purpose. Overcoming pain requires resilience, but more importantly, it requires a deeper connection to our faith and a sense of purpose that transcends the moment of difficulty. The first and most important way to overcome pain is by turning to faith. For those who believe in a higher power, this might mean relying on prayer, meditation, or seeking comfort from sacred texts. In Christianity, turning to God in prayer during times of hardship provides comfort and strength. Psalm 34-18 states, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted, and saves those who are crushed in spirit." Similarly, in Islam, dua, supplication, is a means of expressing grief and seeking solace from Allah. By reaching out to the divine, we acknowledge that we are not alone in our suffering, and that God is present in our pain. Having a spiritual anchor during difficult times helps to remind us that suffering is temporary and that divine support is always available. Through prayer or reflection, we can find comfort in knowing that we are being carried through our struggles by a higher power. Another way to overcome pain is by finding purpose in the suffering. This is a challenging concept, but it is central to many spiritual beliefs. Rather than viewing suffering as something to avoid or escape, we can look for meaning in it. Finding purpose in pain involves asking ourselves, what can we learn from this hardship? How can it help us grow? In Buddhism, suffering is considered an essential part of life, and it's seen as a way to understand the impermanence of all things. It teaches that through suffering, we can achieve enlightenment and overcome attachments that keep us bound to the cycle of rebirth. Similarly, in Christianity, suffering is often viewed as a way to become more Christ-like, sharing in His suffering and allowing us to grow in compassion, humility, and love. Embracing suffering with the understanding that it has purpose can transform our perspective and help us endure even the most difficult trials. It reminds us that our pain is not meaningless but a catalyst for spiritual growth and a deeper connection to our purpose. One powerful way to heal from our own pain is by helping others who are suffering. In times of hardship, reaching out to others, whether it's offering a listening ear, providing physical assistance, or simply showing compassion, can provide a sense of purpose and fulfillment. It reminds us that we are not alone in our suffering, and that, through our pain, we can become a source of strength and encouragement for others. Acts of kindness not only bring healing to others, but also help to ease our own burdens. In Christianity, for example, the idea of bearing one another's burdens is emphasized in Galatians 6:2. By sharing in the struggles of others, we find a sense of solidarity and meaning that helps us endure our own difficulties. Helping others can also bring perspective to our own struggles. When we see that others are experiencing pain, we realize that suffering is a universal experience and that, through compassion, we can all walk through life's trials together. It's important to recognize that suffering is not the end, but rather a test of our faith and resilience. This test is what will ultimately shape our character and prepare us for heaven's door. In fact, many spiritual teachings describe suffering as a necessary part of life's journey. The way we handle these challenges is crucial in determining whether we are spiritually prepared for the ultimate reward, heaven. Resilience is the ability to endure hardship without giving up or losing faith. In the face of suffering, spiritual resilience is about maintaining trust in the divine plan, knowing that God, or a higher power, is guiding us through the process. It means holding on to hope even in the darkest moments, remembering that our pain will eventually lead to peace. The ability to persevere through difficulties is seen as an essential quality for those preparing to enter heaven. In 2 Corinthians 4:17, 1-8, the Bible emphasizes that our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen. Since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. And this passage encourages us to endure hardships with the understanding that they are temporary, and that the reward that awaits us, eternal peace and joy, is far greater than anything we experience on earth. Suffering can serve as a refining process, transforming our weaknesses into strengths and deepening our connection to our faith and to the divine. Just as metal is purified by fire, our faith and character are often tested and strengthened through adversity. The Apostle Paul in the Bible speaks about how suffering builds perseverance, character, and hope, Romans 5:3-4, emphasizing that these qualities are crucial in preparing for heaven. Similarly, in Islam, the Prophet Muhammad taught that patience in times of trial is a virtue that is rewarded by Allah. Those who remain patient during hardship are promised a reward far greater than their suffering. This reward may not always come in the form of earthly relief, but through spiritual growth and the promise of heaven. Resilience through suffering is about finding the strength to move forward, even when it feels like the world is pushing us back. It's about maintaining our faith, continuing to seek the divine, and trusting that every trial is preparing us for something greater, the opening of heaven's doors. The challenges and struggles we face in life are not without purpose. They are opportunities to grow spiritually, test our faith, and build the resilience needed to enter heaven's doors. Suffering is not the end. It is a step along the path that ultimately leads to peace, spiritual growth, and eternal reward. By finding solace in our faith, seeking purpose in our pain, and showing compassion to others, we prepare ourselves for the divine invitation that awaits us. As we navigate the trials of life, let us remember that resilience through difficulties is key to preparing for heaven's doors to open. Every moment of suffering is an opportunity to strengthen our character, reaffirm our faith, and draw closer to the divine. Through our trials, we are being refined, readying ourselves for the day when heaven's doors open wide to welcome us home. The idea of heaven has often been viewed as a far-off, distant place, a destination we can only reach after death. But what if heaven isn't just a final destination? What if heaven is something we can begin to experience right now? Heaven, in many spiritual and religious traditions, isn't just the afterlife. It's also the state of being we create in the present through the way we live, think, and interact with others. It's about how we live in harmony with divine principles, focusing on love, peace, and goodness, all of which can be experienced today, right here on earth. In the Bible, Jesus often speaks of the kingdom of God being at hand, Matthew 4:17, implying that the divine realm is not something far away, but something that can begin to manifest in our lives today. Heaven is not only about waiting for something to happen in the future. It's about making heaven tangible in our everyday lives through our actions. When we align our hearts and minds with compassion, kindness, and service, we bring heaven into our present reality. In Islam, the concept of Jannah, paradise, is sometimes described as a place where believers are rewarded for their good deeds on earth. However, the Quran also emphasizes that a righteous, sincere life, full of faith, devotion, and charity, can bring a taste of heaven in this life. One can experience peace and contentment by living a life in submission to God's will. Living according to divine teachings allows us to feel a sense of spiritual fulfillment, peace, and joy in our current life. By embracing these qualities, we can create our own version of heaven right here on earth, a place where our hearts are at peace, our relationships are filled with love, and our world is made better through service to others. So, how do we begin to create heaven in the present? The answer lies in our actions, both big and small. Every act of kindness, every moment of patience, and every gesture of love contributes to making our world a more heavenly place. Heaven is something that can be cultivated through our relationships, our work, and how we treat others. By embracing this, we start to experience the fulfillment of heaven now, not just in the afterlife. Heaven is not just a place to be attained later, it's something that we can experience here and now. One of the most powerful ways to bring heaven into our lives today is by practicing kindness, love, and service to others. These actions not only benefit those around us, but they also nourish our own souls and contribute to a deeper sense of fulfillment and joy. Kindness is one of the most direct ways we can create heaven in our lives today. A simple smile, a listening ear, a compliment, or a helping hand can all make a difference in someone's day. In Matthew 25-35:40, Jesus teaches that whatever we do for others, especially the least fortunate, we do for Him. These small acts of kindness are a reflection of the love and care that we should show to others. Every act of kindness, no matter how small, ripples out into the world, creating a more compassionate and loving atmosphere. It is through these small, everyday actions that we begin to make heaven visible in our world. We don't need to wait for a grand, life-changing moment to make a difference. Every moment is an opportunity to create heaven, one small act at a time. Service to others is another way to create heaven in our current lives. When we serve others, whether it's through volunteering, helping a neighbor, or being there for someone in need, we align ourselves with the divine act of giving. In many religious traditions, serving others is seen as a way to mirror the selflessness of the divine. In Christianity, Jesus himself served others, washing his disciples' feet as a model of humility and service. John 13:14-15. In Islam, charity is a fundamental practice, with the act of giving to the poor and helping those in need being considered an essential part of living a righteous life. Service brings not only blessings to those who receive it, but also to the person performing the act. It deepens our sense of connection to others, fosters a sense of community, and nurtures a feeling of satisfaction and joy. When we serve, we experience a taste of the peace and joy of heaven because we are living in alignment with divine will. Service brings heaven to us in the form of fulfillment, knowing that we are part of something greater than ourselves. At the heart of creating heaven in the present is unconditional love. Love is the force that binds everything together. It's what makes our relationships, our communities, and our lives meaningful. Loving others, even when it's difficult, allows us to experience heaven in our hearts. Jesus taught his followers to love one another as he has loved them. John 13:34. Emphasizing that love is not just about feeling affection for those who are easy to love, but also about showing compassion to those who are difficult to love. By practicing love, loving ourselves, loving others, and loving the world, we open ourselves to the peace of heaven that comes from living with a heart full of compassion and understanding. When we love, we are not only making a positive impact on others, but we are also transforming our own hearts. Love brings us closer to the divine and creates a heaven on earth, where mutual respect and understanding flourish. Creating heaven in the present is not about waiting for some future event. It's about consciously choosing to live in a way that reflects divine values, love, kindness, peace, and service. Here are some practical steps that we can take to bring heaven into our everyday lives and experience true happiness. One of the easiest and most effective ways to create a heavenly life is to practice gratitude. Gratitude shifts our focus from what we lack to what we have. It cultivates a sense of peace and contentment, even in challenging circumstances. In 1 Thessalonians 5:18, the Bible urges believers to give thanks in all circumstances. Gratitude opens our hearts to joy and helps us appreciate the blessings in our lives. By regularly expressing thanks for the small things, a sunny day, a kind word, a moment of peace, we begin to recognize heaven in our current reality. Forgiveness is a powerful tool for creating heaven in our lives. Holding on to anger, resentment, or grudges weighs us down and keeps us from experiencing true peace. Forgiveness, on the other hand, frees us from emotional burdens and creates space for healing. In Matthew 6:14-15, Jesus teaches that forgiving others is essential for receiving forgiveness from God. When we forgive, we release negativity and open our hearts to love and peace, which are the foundations of heaven. Practicing forgiveness allows us to live with freedom and lightness, transforming our relationships and our outlook on life. Generosity and compassion are also key ingredients in creating heaven on earth. Whether it's giving our time, resources, or love, acts of generosity build the kind of community where heaven can thrive. Living with an open hand and caring for those in need is a reflection of the divine love that is the heart of heaven. Compassion for others, especially during their times of need, brings heaven to life in our hearts and in our actions. By living generously and with empathy, we can experience heaven through the joy of helping others and witnessing the positive impact we make. Inner peace is essential to experiencing heaven in the present. Through prayer, meditation, mindfulness, or simply taking quiet moments to reflect, we can create a sense of peace within ourselves. This peace extends to others, creating a ripple effect that can transform our environments. Jesus said, "Blessed are the peacemakers," Matthew 5-9, emphasizing that peace is both a divine gift and a calling. By cultivating peace within, we can bring heaven into our relationships, workplaces, and communities. Heaven is not just the destination, but the journey. It's about living today in a way that reflects the values of love, kindness, and peace. We have the power to create heaven in our lives right now by choosing to live with gratitude, forgiveness, service, and compassion. These small but powerful actions help us align with divine purpose and bring heaven into our present experience. By embracing these practical steps and cultivating a positive, loving, and generous mindset, we can experience heaven here on earth and be a part of making the world a better place. The more we live in alignment with heaven's values, the more we bring heaven to life in the here and now, and in doing so, prepare ourselves for the ultimate reward that awaits us. Faith is often described as the key that opens the door to heaven. It is the foundation upon which our spiritual journey is built, the anchor that holds us steady through life's trials, and the light that guides us through the darkness. Faith in God or a higher power is a central theme in nearly every major religious tradition, and it plays a pivotal role in how we prepare for heaven. At its core, faith is the belief in something greater than ourselves, an unshakable trust that there is a purpose to our lives, and that we are guided by a higher power. This faith is not blind or passive. It is a living, active force that shapes our daily actions, decisions, and interactions. Faith gives us the strength to persevere, the courage to face adversity, and the hope that despite life's challenges, heaven awaits us. In Christianity, faith in Jesus Christ is considered the gateway to salvation. Jesus said in John 14:6, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." This emphasizes that faith in Christ is not just a belief but a commitment to live in accordance with his teachings and example. Through this faith, Christians believe they are not only prepared for heaven but also transformed into the image of Christ. In Islam, faith in Allah is the central tenet of the religion. The 5 pillars of Islam, including Shahada, faith in the oneness of God, Salah, prayer, Zakat, charity, Psalm, fasting, and Hajj, pilgrimage, are all acts of devotion that flow from a strong faith in the divine. Muslims believe that faith in Allah and living in accordance with his guidance are what open the doors to Jannah, paradise. Faith enables us to trust in God's promises of eternal life, peace, and joy. It allows us to navigate life's journey with a sense of purpose and a focus on the divine reward that awaits us. Heaven's door is not opened by our own efforts alone but by faith in God's grace and mercy, which empowers us to live out the principles of love, kindness, and service. Challenges and difficulties are inevitable in life, but how we perceive and respond to these challenges is shaped by our faith. Faith transforms challenges from obstacles to opportunities for growth, learning, and spiritual progress. When we face hardships, our faith helps us to see beyond the immediate pain or struggle and understand that these trials are not the end, but rather a part of the journey toward heaven. In Christianity, suffering is not seen as something meaningless, but as a means to deepen our faith and trust in God. Romans 5:3-4 says, "Not only that, but we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope." This passage illustrates that challenges are an integral part of spiritual growth. Through suffering, we develop endurance, character, and hope, qualities that prepare us for heaven. Christians believe that faith helps them endure trials with the understanding that these difficulties are temporary, and the eternal rewards of heaven far outweigh the struggles of this life. Similarly, in Islam, life's challenges are viewed as tests from Allah. The Quran says in Surah Al-Baqarah 2-286, "Allah does not burden a soul beyond that it can bear." This verse reassures believers that every challenge is within their capacity to overcome. The faith that Allah is with them through every trial gives them the strength to endure and grow. In Islam, facing challenges with patience and perseverance is rewarded in the afterlife, making it a powerful motivator for those enduring hardship. Faith helps us develop a positive mindset even in the most difficult circumstances. Instead of fearing or resenting challenges, we begin to see them as opportunities to strengthen our spiritual muscles. Each challenge we face is an opportunity to grow in faith, trust, and resilience, bringing us one step closer to our ultimate goal, heaven. When we approach challenges with faith, we find meaning in suffering. Rather than viewing hardship as a punishment, we view it as a part of God's greater plan, a test that refines us and prepares us for the glory that awaits. Faith enables us to face the storms of life with a sense of peace, knowing that we are not alone in our struggles and that each challenge is a step toward heaven. Faith is not just about belief, it is about action. True faith manifests in the way we live through our sacrifices, acts of kindness, and resilience in the face of personal struggles. Sacrifice is a key aspect of faith because it involves giving up something of value in order to align with a higher purpose. Whether it's sacrificing our time, our comfort, or our resources, sacrifice is an expression of faith that prepares us for heaven. In Christianity, sacrifice is exemplified by the life of Jesus Christ. His ultimate sacrifice on the cross is seen as the ultimate act of love and obedience to God. Christians are called to take up their own crosses and follow Christ in their daily lives. Luke 9:23. This means that faith requires sacrifice, whether it's sacrificing our selfish desires, our ego, or our desire for earthly rewards. Living a sacrificial life, centered on service to others, is one way that Christians prepare for heaven. Similarly, in Islam, sacrifice is central to the faith. The concept of sacrifice is embodied in the practice of zakat, the mandatory giving of alms to the poor, and the sacrifice of an animal during the festival of Eid al-Adha, to commemorate the willingness of the Prophet Ibrahim to sacrifice his son in obedience to God's command. In Islam, sacrifice is viewed as an act of submission to God and is believed to purify the soul, bringing the believer closer to paradise. Sacrifice is also reflected in personal struggles, the challenges we face in our own lives. Faith helps us overcome our personal battles, whether it's battling addiction, overcoming anger, forgiving others, or working through grief. Every time we sacrifice our pride or our personal comfort for the sake of others, we prepare our hearts to receive heaven's promise. By enduring hardship with faith, we grow stronger in character and align our actions with the divine will. In Hinduism and Buddhism, faith is intertwined with spiritual discipline and selflessness. Both traditions emphasize the importance of overcoming personal desires and attachments in order to reach spiritual liberation. In Hinduism, selfless service, seva, is seen as a form of devotion that brings one closer to God and ultimately to moksha, liberation. In Buddhism, the Noble Eightfold Path encourages practitioners to live with right intention, right speech, right action, and right livelihood, all of which are forms of sacrifice that help us transcend suffering and reach nirvana. In all these traditions, sacrifice is not a one-time act, but a way of life. It's about living with intention, choosing the higher path even when it's difficult, and offering our lives in service to others. This continual sacrifice in small, everyday ways is how we prepare for heaven. Each time we put others before ourselves, each time we endure hardship with grace, we draw nearer to the ultimate reward. Faith plays an essential role in preparing for heaven. It is the key that unlocks the door, guiding us through life's challenges and helping us endure suffering. Faith provides the strength to face life's trials with courage and optimism, transforming difficulties into opportunities for growth. Through faith and sacrifice, we learn to live in accordance with divine will, making our lives a preparation for heaven. Faith is not just about belief. It's about how we live our faith through acts of kindness, compassion, and sacrifice. The more we embody our faith in our actions, the closer we come to the divine purpose for our lives, and the more we prepare ourselves for the ultimate reward, heaven. Faith empowers us to move beyond earthly struggles and see them as part of the greater journey, knowing that each step brings us closer to the divine peace that awaits us. Through faith, we are not only prepared for heaven in the afterlife, but we also experience the joy and fulfillment of heaven here and now. It is through faith that we are able to persevere, grow, and ultimately reach the gates of heaven, where divine love and peace await us. Heaven, in many religious and spiritual traditions, is not merely a distant destination we reach after death, but a connection to a higher being, or a deep connection to the divine, the universe, or a higher self. The essence of heaven is not just about a place, but rather about becoming one with the divine, experiencing peace, love, and unity with the greater power that created and sustains us. Heaven represents a state of being, a spiritual alignment with our higher purpose, where we live in harmony with the universe, or God. This deeper connection to the divine is often understood as reuniting with the source of all creation, whether through God in Christianity and Islam, the ultimate consciousness in Hinduism, or nirvana in Buddhism. Many believe that heaven is a reflection of inner spiritual harmony, and that to truly experience heaven, we must first align our lives with higher principles. This means connecting to our true selves, our divine nature, and the source of all goodness, peace, and love. The concept of heaven being a connection with a higher self suggests that heaven is not just a final destination, but a journey that begins with inner transformation. It is a relationship with the divine that shapes our lives, our actions, and our path forward. This connection is not based on external circumstances or material rewards, but on the inner peace and fulfillment we gain through aligning with our spiritual nature. In Christianity, the kingdom of God is described as being both within us and around us. Luke 17:21. This reflects the idea that heaven is not only a future place, but a present reality that we experience when we live in alignment with God's will. Similarly, in Islam, submission to Allah's will brings us closer to experiencing heaven, which is not merely a place of reward but a reflection of the peace that comes from being in tune with the divine. To experience heaven on earth, we must cultivate a deeper relationship with God, or a higher power, acknowledging that heaven is less about a physical realm and more about an eternal spiritual connection. The ultimate goal is to transcend the earthly and the temporary, and find our true home in the divine, here and now. Connecting with a higher self or a higher purpose is a transformative journey that requires intention, discipline, and openness. Here are some practical steps that can help guide you toward aligning with your higher purpose and drawing nearer to heaven. Meditation is one of the most effective ways to cultivate a deeper connection with your higher self. By quieting the mind and focusing inward, we create space for spiritual growth and connection. Through regular meditation, we can tune into the presence of the divine and begin to experience a sense of peace and clarity that comes from being aligned with a higher purpose. In Buddhism, meditation is the primary practice for achieving enlightenment, or nirvana, and is considered the pathway to greater self-awareness. In Christianity, contemplative prayer, or simply being still in God's presence, helps deepen the relationship with God and bring about inner peace. Meditation allows us to quiet the noise of the world and open ourselves to a deeper spiritual understanding, helping us connect to heaven not just as a place, but as a state of being. Prayer is a powerful practice for anyone seeking to connect with a higher being or the divine. Whether you pray to God, the universe, or your inner self, prayer is a way to open the heart and soul to divine guidance, wisdom, and support. Prayer connects us to heaven because it is an expression of our desire to be in alignment with a higher purpose and divine will. In Christianity, prayer is seen as a direct line to God, allowing believers to express gratitude, seek guidance, and ask for strength in times of trial. The Lord's Prayer, Matthew 6:9-13, teaches how to align oneself with God's will. Similarly, Islam emphasizes the importance of regular prayer, salah, as it is through these moments of connection with Allah that Muslims strengthen their faith and draw closer to heaven. Prayer brings peace, clarity, and understanding, as it allows us to surrender our worries and desires, seeking a deeper connection to the divine. It is through prayer that we align ourselves with the higher truths that lead us closer to heaven. Connecting with a higher purpose also requires us to live intentionally, setting spiritual goals that align with our faith and values. This involves striving to live a life of compassion, kindness, and justice, and making choices that reflect divine principles. Living with spiritual intent means that we recognize the sacredness of each moment, and we actively seek to contribute to the greater good. Whether in Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, or any other faith, the concept of living with purpose is central to the spiritual journey. This includes practicing virtues like humility, honesty, and patience, and living a life that brings light to others. It means acting with integrity, serving others selflessly, and fostering inner peace. By making conscious choices to live in alignment with a higher purpose, we begin to experience heaven in the present, as we align our lives with the divine. Studying sacred texts and reflecting on their meaning can deepen our connection with the divine. Whether through the Bible, Quran, Bhagavad Gita, or other spiritual writings, these texts offer guidance on how to live in alignment with God's will and walk the path toward heaven. Reflecting on the wisdom of these teachings helps us understand our higher purpose and challenges us to live according to divine principles. Regular reflection and study, keep us grounded in our spiritual beliefs, and help us stay focused on our path to heaven. Whether it's reading scripture, attending religious services, or engaging in group spiritual discussions, these practices keep us in tune with our higher self and help us cultivate the virtues that bring us closer to heaven. At the heart of all spiritual teachings, the one thing that consistently brings us closer to heaven is love. Love is the bridge that connects us to the divine and to others. Every act of kindness, compassion, and forgiveness brings us one step closer to the divine peace and joy of heaven. Simple, everyday acts of kindness are a direct reflection of heaven on earth. Whether it's helping a neighbor, listening to someone in need, or offering a kind word, each act of kindness brings heaven into the present. Love, in its purest form, is expressed through our actions toward others. It is in these moments of selflessness that we experience the divine presence, as we live out the principles that heaven represents. In Christianity, Jesus teaches that loving one another is the greatest commandment, Matthew 22:37-39. This love is not limited to those who are easy to love but extends to all people, including our enemies. In Islam, one of the most beloved actions to Allah is to show love and kindness toward others, especially those who are less fortunate. Both traditions emphasize that acts of kindness toward others are an expression of our love for God. Forgiveness is another powerful act of love that brings us closer to heaven. Forgiving others, even when it is difficult, frees us from the burden of resentment and allows us to heal. Forgiveness opens our hearts, enabling us to experience the peace and love that heaven represents. In Christianity, forgiveness is central to the teachings of Jesus, who taught that we must forgive others as God forgives us. Matthew 6:14-15. In Islam, forgiveness is a virtue, and Allah's mercy is shown to those who forgive others. Forgiveness is a form of love, and it allows us to transcend the pain and suffering caused by conflict. By letting go of anger and resentment, we align ourselves with divine peace, making our hearts more receptive to the love and joy that heaven brings. Compassion is the embodiment of love in action. It extends beyond human beings to all living creatures and even the environment. Showing compassion means being sensitive to the suffering of others and taking steps to ease that suffering. In Buddhism, compassion is the cornerstone of the path to enlightenment, and in Hinduism, ahimsa, non-violence, is a central principle of living in harmony with all beings. When we act with compassion and empathy, we connect more deeply with the divine and experience heaven's peace on earth. Each act of compassion, no matter how small, brings us closer to the ultimate goal of unity with the divine heaven. In conclusion, heaven is not merely a distant place or an afterlife reward. It is a deep connection with the divine, the higher self, and a reflection of love, peace, and spiritual fulfillment. Through practices like meditation, prayer, living in alignment with spiritual goals, and performing acts of kindness, forgiveness, and compassion, we can experience heaven in the present moment. Every act of love and service is a step closer to heaven. By living out the values of heaven, kindness, humility, love, and service to others, we begin to make heaven tangible in our daily lives. Heaven is not just a final destination, but a journey that we embark on. By connecting with our higher selves and aligning with divine principles. By doing so, we bring heaven to earth and prepare ourselves for the ultimate peace and joy that await us in the divine realm. As we approach the final part of this journey toward understanding heaven, one of the most crucial realizations we can come to is that preparing for heaven is a deeply personal journey. While we may share common spiritual principles, each of us has a unique path to take in life. Our experiences, struggles, victories, and lessons all contribute to the process of self-discovery, the awareness of who we truly are and what our higher purpose is in life. This journey of self-discovery is the foundation of preparing for heaven. The first step in preparing for heaven is recognizing that we all need to change and grow. The journey toward heaven is not about reaching perfection, but about continually evolving into a person who is aligned with higher spiritual principles. To be ready for heaven, we must first acknowledge the need for transformation. This requires honesty with ourselves, confronting our weaknesses, letting go of old habits, and choosing to embrace the virtues that will bring us closer to the divine. Self-discovery is about understanding the spiritual essence that lies within us. It's about realizing that our actions, thoughts, and intentions shape our path toward heaven. We must ask ourselves, what are the areas in my life where I need to grow? How can I better align my actions with my higher purpose? This is not always easy, as it requires deep introspection, but it is a critical part of preparing for the opening of heaven's doors. The process of self-discovery involves cultivating qualities such as compassion, humility, patience, and love, and recognizing that these virtues will lead us closer to our divine purpose. As we grow in awareness of ourselves and our relationship to the divine, we begin to see the world differently, no longer as a place of obstacles, but as a place of learning, growth, and preparation for the eternal life that awaits us. In Christianity, Jesus teaches that the kingdom of God is within us, Luke 17:21, emphasizing that heaven begins within the heart and mind of the believer. Self-discovery is a key part of realizing that heaven is not just a place after death but a state of being that we can experience now. This understanding allows us to live in alignment with the teachings of Christ, embracing love, forgiveness, and compassion as we prepare for our spiritual home. Similarly, in Islam, faith in Allah's will and striving to live in accordance with divine guidance through introspection and self-awareness are essential to preparing for heaven. Self-discovery is not a one-time event. It's a continuous process of growing and evolving, always striving to align more deeply with the divine will. As we embark on this journey of self-discovery, we begin to see the path to heaven more clearly, and we start to understand that heaven is not a distant place, but the culmination of a life lived in alignment with higher spiritual values. One of the most powerful messages we can take from this understanding of self-discovery is that it's never too late to begin the journey toward heaven. Regardless of where we are in life, regardless of how many mistakes we've made or how far we feel from our divine purpose, the opportunity for change is always present. We may look back at our lives and see areas where we have fallen short, moments where we failed to act with kindness, times when we ignored the call to serve others, or instances where we acted out of anger or pride. But the beauty of life and faith is that it's never too late to start anew. Heaven does not wait for perfect people. It welcomes those who choose to take action today, no matter where they are in their spiritual journey. Immediate action is the key to transformation. Starting today with small changes can begin the process of preparing for heaven. These changes do not need to be monumental. In fact, it's often the small, consistent steps that make the biggest difference over time. Begin by making a commitment to live with more love, patience, and forgiveness, even in small ways. Perhaps it's offering a kind word to someone who needs encouragement, choosing to forgive someone who has wronged you, or simply taking time each day to pray, meditate, or reflect on your spiritual growth. In the Bible, Jesus often called his followers to act in the present and not wait for some perfect moment in the future. In Matthew 7:7-8, he says, "Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be opened to you." This verse emphasizes that the journey toward heaven begins with action, the willingness to seek, to knock, and to ask for guidance from the divine. There is no need to wait for tomorrow. Heaven's door is ready to open for those who are ready to take the first step toward it today. In Islam, the Quran teaches that God is always near, always ready to guide us, and that we should always turn to him in repentance and prayer. Surah At-Tawbah 9-104. Every new day is an opportunity to make better choices, to return to the path of righteousness, and to realign ourselves with the divine. It is never too late to choose faith, to choose love, and to choose kindness. As we take these first steps, it's important to remember that perfection is not required. Heaven's doors do not open to the flawless, but to those who are sincere in their desire for change and growth. The process of transformation is what matters, not how far along we are in that process. What matters is that we make the decision today to move forward, to be better, to serve others, and to live according to divine purpose. The ultimate promise of heaven is one of divine welcome and eternal peace, and it is open to those who are truly ready. Heaven is not just a reward for a life well lived, but the culmination of a journey of faith, love, and service. It is a gift offered to those who have prepared their hearts and minds, who have spent their lives living in alignment with the divine, and who have chosen to live each day with love, compassion, and purpose. Heaven will open its doors to those who are ready, to those who are willing to walk the journey of transformation. It is not the final destination that matters most, but the way we travel the road to get there. Heaven is the result of the journey of faith. It is the culmination of our efforts to live a life of service, love, humility, and spiritual devotion. To prepare for heaven, we must be ready to begin now, to make the necessary changes today, and to commit ourselves to live each moment as if it were a step toward heaven. In every moment of kindness, in every act of forgiveness, in every time we choose patience over anger, we are building our pathway to heaven. The key to entering heaven is not found in external achievements, but in the way we live our lives with faith, humility, and love. Are you ready to step forward? Are you ready to take the first step toward heaven today? Your journey begins today. The doors of heaven are already waiting for you. It's time to open your heart and begin walking the path that leads to divine peace and eternal joy. Heaven is not just a destination, it's the life you live, the choices you make, and the love you share. Start now, and the doors will open. As we wrap up today's discussion, let's reflect on the key points we've explored. Heaven is not just a distant afterlife, it's a journey of transformation that begins right here and right now. Every challenge, every trial, and every struggle you face is not just an obstacle, but an opportunity to prepare yourself for heaven's opening. Through each challenge, you are being shaped and refined to become the person ready to walk through the divine doors of peace, love, and eternal joy. Heaven isn't simply something that happens to us after death. It's something we actively create through our actions, beliefs, and the way we live our lives. By practicing faith, kindness, love, forgiveness, and self-awareness, we align ourselves with divine purpose and prepare ourselves for the ultimate reward, heaven. Our path to heaven is a continuous journey of self-discovery and growth. Each step forward, no matter how small, brings us closer to the eternal peace that awaits. Now, I want to encourage you to take immediate action. Reflect on where you are in your journey right now. What areas of your life can you change today to live in alignment with your higher purpose? It's never too late to start. Whether it's embracing love, practicing forgiveness, living more consciously, or growing in your faith, you can begin making small but meaningful changes right now. The journey toward heaven begins with the choices we make today, and every decision you make can bring you one step closer to the divine. If you found this video inspiring or helpful, please like, subscribe, and share it with others who may also benefit from this message. We're all on this journey together, and the more we share, the more we can help each other along the way. I'd love to hear your thoughts and stories in the comments below. What steps are you taking to prepare for heaven in your life? Share your experiences with us, and let's encourage each other to keep moving forward on this transformative journey. Thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video, where we'll continue exploring ways to live a life aligned with purpose, faith, and love. Until then, remember, heaven is not just a destination, it's a journey of becoming. Start your journey today.